I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge any sorry business that may be happening or being felt in our community. And I'd also like to acknowledge our ratepayers who keep the lights on in the building and keep council doing what we're doing. So we only have one leave of absence. We have one apology, which is Councillor Wilcox. I believe she has a family matter that she's attending to. And we have Councillor Fraser who's teaming in. Is that right? I can see him on the screen. I'd just like to say, you know, Councillor Fraser, if I had a list of hard-working people, he'd be number one every time on that list. He's one of the hardest working people that I know. And I'd also like to thank you for your service in the military. Thank you. There is now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous minutes and that the minutes of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on Tuesday 20th of January be confirmed. Do I have a mover for the motion displayed on the screen? There's been moved by Councillor Ledger, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Can I have a show of hands in support? That has been carried by everyone in the room. How do you vote, Councillor Fraser?
For.
That has been carried. Now for declarations of conflicts of interest. I now refer to the declarations of conflict of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest for any of our agenda items today? There being none, I'll now refer to the reports on today's agenda. So we're going to begin with item 6.1, abandoned and derelict house research findings and recommendations. This is a public report with a confidential attachment, but we're going to be doing something a little different today. We're pioneers in the Lifestyle Committee. We're going to revoke the confidentiality, is that it? Of the attachment. So according to section 254J, legal advice obtained by the local government or legal proceedings involving the local government, including, for example, legal proceedings that may be taken by or against the local government. Now, for this to happen, we need to do a vote, and there should be a motion up on the screen that updated confidential attachment 1 is distributed to councillors on the 6th of February in relation to item 6.1 of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on 11th February 2026 to be tabled. So can we have a vote? That has been moved by Councillor Lane. Can I have that has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. Can I see a show of hands? And
no, we're tabling a confidential attachment to make it public.
Okay, I'll explain it for you, Councillor Bennett. Okay, so in council, we try to be transparent. We try to show our residents as much as we can. So whenever there is an opportunity that we have a confidential document that we can make it available for the public, we'll do so. And this has been, in this circumstance, we've been able to do it, and this is why we have done that. Well, I'm explaining it for the people at home, Councillor Bennett. Okay, so sorry, we've just been asked to vote again. Can we see how everyone votes? How do you vote, Councillor Jeremiah?
Against.
You're against a confidential a document that was confidential. It's been revoked, staying in confidential.
So what's happened, Mr. Chair, is that you've proposed this motion. Council officers determined that this attachment is to be confidential under the privacy and obligations of a councillor. Everything in council is confidential unless it's cleared by the CEO or his delegate. You are not a delegate of the CEO. So even though you've proposed this motion, I'm not sure if the council officers support that this wouldn't endanger Logan Council in the future. So I support being open. That's one of the many things we vote in similar. Let's get things open. But I don't support rushing things and doing things in a messy way. So if the council officers say, we've made a mistake, we don't think it should be confidential, we have changed our minds, that makes sense. But we haven't been provided that information.
Would you like the General Manager to clarify for you?
I've already voted.
Councillor Fraser, how did you vote?
Yeah, since it is confidential and the council officers, I should have asked about that, but I didn't, so against.
Okay, that has been passed. Now we're going to do the second vote to remove attachment 1 confidentiality. And there's a motion up on the board that the report in attachment 1 titled Management Report Abandoned and Derelict Houses Across the City of Logan be deemed not confidential. Can I see a mover? Sorry, before we vote, would we like the council office to speak on this? Okay, all right.
Through the chair, thank you very much. There were some late stage concerns that we had, and instead of just not acting on that at the time when we made the agenda, we decided to keep it confidential until we were able to clarify those concerns. We received that information a few days after that, and I was then happy to move it out once I was confident that there was nothing there that was going to cause any concerns.
Okay, councillors, there's a motion displayed up on the screen that the report in attachment 1 titled Management Report Abandoned Derelict Houses Across the City of Logan be deemed not confidential. Can I see a mover?
Can I ask a question, please, Mr Chair?
Of course, Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. Brent, what were the concerns?
We'd received some advice, for that report initially, but although we'd cleared those ones, there were some other concerns about information that would potentially allow identification of additional households in the city, protecting sensitive operational details about council's compliance strategies, and then also safeguarding some proposed regulatory measures that we'd be discussing. There's also caution around sharing some crime patterns that are linked to abandoned houses, such as squatting, drug activity or arson. And we didn't want to inadvertently cause negative consequences in the city because of that. There's some socio-economic profiles of suburbs, which was also, considered sensitive until we were able to clear that out.
And you got legal advice essentially clearing all the concerns around the confidentiality on those items?
We did.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, councillors, can I see a mover? There's been moved by Councillor Bannon, seconded by Mayor Raven. Can I see a show of hands in support? That has been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how do you vote?
Yep, 4.
Okay, so we have one more. Nope. Oh, we're doing that one at the end. Okay. All right. Okay, so the General Manager, City Safety, Liberty, Mr. Brent Dowden, you can speak to your report.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and good morning, councillors. Abandoned and derelict houses present a complex challenge for the City of Logan, affecting neighbourhood safety, public health, local amenity and the City's overall reputation. Recognising these impacts, Council approved a service enhancement in the 2023-2024 budget to undertake detailed research and analysis so we can better understand the extent of the problem in Logan, the factors driving it and opportunities for more effective management. With this, we present the research, the findings and the recommendations. And it's been difficult to understand the true scale of the issues, as Logan hasn't previously kept centralised records of abandoned and derelict houses. Managing abandoned and derelict houses in Logan is a shared responsibility across the two branches, which is City Safety, Livability and Environment, Health, Environment and Sustainability branch, These findings show that homes become abandoned for many reasons, but Council's ability to manage these priorities is currently limited. To address these challenges, the report recommends some key actions which are predominantly focused around better coordination, proactive early intervention, modernising our local laws, providing some education and early engagement, for example, with homeowners before properties become derelict or abandoned, in order to try and prevent that from happening, and then also advocating more broadly for support in how we can address some of these issues. And so these recommendations are trying to move council from a reactive to a proactive and a coordinated model. And the reason for that was our observations when we looked at the data that we did have, and there's lots of gaps in the data. A large proportion of the time that was spent was duplicated effort across the 3 work teams. So we just felt that let's just start by getting a good data set, streamline what we currently do, remove waste, and then deal with, individual scenarios as they come up, because it's quite complex, the scenarios. So then we can work out a way to deal with those.
Okay, we have quite a few questions. So, Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, through the chair, and thank you, Bren and team, for bringing this report. I note that Division 12 is one of the higher areas with abandoned properties, and I have several of them that I am working with, from burnt out shells that need demolishment to all sorts of stuff going on. But I just wanted to ask one quick question. I have a high population of Housing Commission houses as well, which some of them have been boarded up, and then people have got into them. So I was just wondering, as part of this report, we will be working with the state as well with regards to those properties and seeking how they'll move forward with regards to those. I have a lot of older houses in especially Eagleby as well. I just wanted to know whether that we have coordinated with the state government and Housing Commission as well.
Through the chair, good question, Councillor Murphy, and the short answer is yes. Our strategy with this is to get the right heads around the table, so that there's what we've seen is there's a lot of issues that our current processes deal with, for example, long grass vegetation, that kind of thing. But as they scale up, there's other issues that are a lot harder to address, such as the one you're talking about. So our plan there is once we've got enough intelligence to really dig into these scenarios, eliminate the ones that we can respond to. Whatever we're left with, we will absolutely be, obviously in consultation with the divisional councillor, looking at, what other avenues we should be taking to try and mitigate that risk and those concerns. So yes.
Thank you, Brent. A bit of inside information. I did speak with Housing Department the other day with regards to this sort of stuff and what happens. That they are tearing them down and then they become vacant blocks, which sometimes go through to our parks team to constantly mow and stuff. But they're waiting also to have several blocks in a row to do development, to bring forward development for housing. And obviously we've got a crisis going on and they're trying to supply as much as possible. But in the meantime, I've got houses that are boarded up that people are trying to get back into. They go through the roof, they'll smash windows, they do all sorts of stuff, and it does create an environment that the local people do not like. So I applaud anything that can help this situation, and especially with the numbers that I have. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work going into this. It's so complex and difficult to manage. Question on the land banking tax advocacy. I can see the reasons behind it, and that's going to be good, but I'd imagine there's also times where we do want people to land bank for greater development, as just stated. Are you able to zone it, or is it case by case? How would this work?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Good question again. It's going to be case by case. When we consulted more broadly with other LGAs, everyone's paying attention to what we're doing, because there's no one area that had a clearly defined pathway to actually deal with these. And that topic was brought up. Anecdotally, some things I saw was, there's other LGAs that do that. But I think our approach is, let's look at what options are available and what makes most sense based on what's happening in that area, and then design what that forward plan would look like in order to respond the best way possible.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Through you. To the officers that worked on this report, thank you very much. I know that I've raised this a number of times, and some of the examples in my community are long-standing abandoned and derelict housing, and for the residents that live next to or around them, it's a nightmare. When an owner decides that it's more profitable for them to leave a property vacant than to rent it out, they should remove the property, quite frankly, particularly when it starts to become derelict and, you know, people get in and damage, and if there's no services to the property and there's no way forward, I think that it's the pressure, as much pressure needs to come to bear on them. It's not just housing stock that also impacts this. The abandoned and derelict commercial properties play a huge role in, I suppose, encouraging local crime in the areas, and it's very frustrating for people that are trying to live good, righteous lives with kindness and happiness, and they're surrounded by problematic areas. The work that went into this report is significant, and I think the best strategy is the advocacy strategy to the state to empower us to be able to do more. The thing that concerned me probably the most was the non-recoverable costs. So council actually has costs where we can recover mowing and safety measures, but we actually can't recover the costs for all of the other work that's done on abandoned and derelict homes. And if you add up the number of homes versus the non-recoverable costs, the ratepayers are bearing a huge burden, and that is not fair. So this report goes a long way towards having a working group, working out what we can do, advocating to the state for more powers as a local government, but also for them to come in with some new, fresh ideas on how to address this issue and hopefully nip it in the bud once and for all. So I want to thank the officers. I know that Jackie and Andy and Emily before she moved on to another area, and you guys for pushing this forward. It's been a while in coming, but I think getting it right is the most important part. And the way this is written, it's written well, it addresses the issues. Normally the issues emerge in Division 2 and Division 12. And there's not a lot of take up around other parts, but it is actually appearing everywhere. This is not one of those issues where it's isolated. The density is isolated in our areas, but certainly it's happening in other divisions. And for those residents, they deserve better. And if we can deliver it through some good advocacy, I think that's a great outcome.
Councillor Russell.
Thanks very much, Chair. The two subjects that I was hoping to ask questions about have been already touched on by two other councillors, but I just would like to clarify this project, which I'm really excited about. Will it address properties that are not residential, so businesses that have been abandoned, and also properties that will owned or managed by other levels of government? Will this address?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Russell. It's difficult to answer that question because, again, it's going to come down to the devil in the detail with what, who's involved and what powers we have to, affect changes. But I think I was saying to you before, nothing's off the table because a problem in the community is a problem in the community, and we're not going to just draw a line and say, well, we're not looking into that. I think our approach is let's get them all on the table, let's deal with all of them, knowing that some are going to be easy, some are going to be very, very challenging, but we're not shying away from that.
Wonderful. I really appreciate the work that's gone into this.
Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just more of a general question. It's a great report. I like all the content. I just wondered why we were endorsing it and not just noting it, because it's not a policy. It's like I would have thought it was business as usual, and consequently, is it because it went through a service enhancement that we have to endorse it? That was my question.
Through the chair, that's correct. There was a service enhancement, and it had a recommendation that we bring back the findings from the research. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, through the chair. Apologise I didn't come to you before with this because I never picked up when I was talking to Councillor Jeremiah. I like all of it. I'm just recommendation 9 and 11. I just said, how are you going to push? What are you going to push to the state government regarding land tax? Like pushing, I don't want a headline saying that council's pushing for more tax to come through the state. Are you thinking about the land tax being pushed on the derelict house or just vacant land? Because there's no one that would want to touch someone land banking. If they own the land, it's their right to do what they want with it. That's part of buying land. But I can kind of lean a little bit if it's purely for someone that's got a derelict house and won't do anything with it, if we can't make them demo it. So my thoughts around this was purely if the ones I see in Division 8, mainly when I drive here every day, you see all those derelict houses and I've seen all the issues in it. And Councillor Meyer's done a heap to get that sorted, but to me it was, demo them, get rid of them. Don't let a developer have a derelict house sitting there for 2 years, so that's the push I was going for. The land banking tax advocacy raises some questions whether I can support it, because I really need to know what you're pushing the state for and tax-wise. And then 11 is doing the houses back up again. Like I can't really wrap my head around that. Like who's getting the loan? Where it says that we're getting a low interest loan to come in and get a non-for-profit to do the house back up. Are we talking commission houses? Like what are we talking? Like if they're a derelict house that developers bought to subdivide, they're not going to want it done up and someone living in it. So I'm trying to wrap my head around 9 and 11. They're the two I can't sort of get right.
Through the chair. Good questions.
And like I said, sorry, normally I'd come to you and sit down with you for an hour and go through it, but
And still happy to do that, after this. You're touching on probably a lot of complexity about how that can actually work. And like I said before, there is actually no pathway that's already been navigated. So what we're recommending is not a broad brush approach. We're not saying that we will be doing those things. We'll be working towards those. That was the feedback that we got from the research, which is, broad. Those are some of the ideas that came out of that research. So some of those may work for us, some of them won't. But they are on the table. We'll consider those and we'll work through, what makes sense at the time, based on, there's some complications with the frameworks that we're dealing with, the legal frameworks. So we'll have to navigate through all of that.
so through the chair, so supporting this today doesn't mean we're going to be pushing, we haven't agreed to go pushing land tax on people that have got vacant blocks.
That's correct.
Good,
We're not pushing that.
That's the main thing for me.
Yeah, it's not a broad brush approach.
Yeah.
We're not saying we will. We're saying these are the things we'd consider.
Yeah, and they'll obviously come back to council before a decision is made further on that.
Through the chair, that would have to come back through the budget process. If we're going to amend rates and apply a tax of sorts, that would have to go through the budget process anyway for approval. And I don't think the intent is for it to be a broad brush every resident. It might be a targeted rate on an identified house that's been abandoned or derelict to encourage them to move it forward. So it'd have to come back through that process anyway, councillor.
And so you can work with the compliance team on that, obviously. You'd work with the compliance team on that, yeah.
Councillor Bradley.
I'm going to withdraw my question.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, and thank you to the team for doing this work. This obviously isn't just a Logan problem. It's not even just a Queensland or Australia problem. And we went to Cairo for the World Urban Forum. Cities all over the world are struggling with what you do with abandoned houses. And in countries that aren't as well regulated as Australia, there's entire structures that are built, never approved, and then abandoned because they realise they can't get approval, and like thousands of people die every year living in those dangerous structures. So it's a huge issue. Even when we're in New York talking to mayors in the US, they all have problems with this, and they all have problems with the regulatory environment. So what you're doing is actually universally needed by local governments all over the world. So no pressure, but if you get this right, it could be a pretty big deal. The reason why it was something that I was passionate about is because it's been raised with me, not just through this the election campaign for mayor, but literally for years and years. You can see the numbers in Division 5. As the Division 5 councillor, people have been raising it with us, and I know that other councillors will have the same experiences, because community members find it incredibly unjust that they take such good care of their homes, but then someone who doesn't, to the point where it detriments every home in the neighbourhood, there's no legal method to either enforce them to do the right thing or to punish them for not doing the right thing. And that really galls people, that there's no process that you can go through that returns that house to the state it should be in. Like Councillor Bannon, land banking tax advocacy is complex, because I would rather that we build the right product on a piece of land the first time rather than rush to deliver a low-density product in an area that should, for instance, have units. So I don't want to see detached dwellings in a centre when you'd rather see units there, and if you have to wait 5 or 10 years to get that, that's a better outcome, because once you build houses, they stay there for at least 50 years. So that, I note the complexity around that, and I'm sure we'll still have more work to do there. But I just want to thank you for doing the research and tackling it from an informed point of view. And also, every time we identify these fragmented processes in council, we're moving towards a more efficient organisation that doesn't duplicate or waste time. So, and I know that that's hard in government to break the silos of different branches. So thank you very much for leaning in on that. It's so important, because once you've got a single view of a property or of a customer or of a problem, that's the only way you're really going to be able to tackle it properly. So you can't even start until you know what the problem is and understand it completely. So thank you very much for that work, and I'm excited to see all the improved outcomes that we can start working towards once we get some help from our friends in the state. Because even when you ask, there's an AI that focuses just on local government, and looks at regulation all over the world. And when you ask it, how do local governments deal with derelict houses, it gives a very accurate answer where it says it's incredibly complicated and there's no single way to resolve this problem. So, and that's, you can ask it for Logan, you can ask it for Sydney, you can ask it for New York. The answer is the same, because this is a vexed issue that no one has solved. So if we can solve it, we can brag about how great Logan is, not just as a place to live, but as a place to make it better for everyone to live.
Councillor Jeremiah.
Thank you. The reason why I was supportive of this project in its beginning times is because it's a practical issue and council has practical ability to help fix it. You know, you heard all these classic examples like the broken windows theory in New York City, how that city council worked practically to try to make the neighbourhood a lot better. And it worked. So I think that what drew me into this project, that council is close to the ground and we can do something instead of just talking about it. So 95% of this report is that. 95% is doing something practical and using ratepayers' money to make sure that we improve the city. So I support 95% of the report. The 5% that I don't support is not so good. And when we look at what are we actually voting on today, the recommendation is that, quote, that the recommendations to improve council's management of abandoned and derelict houses, as in confidential attachment 1, which is now not confidential, be endorsed. So, okay, let's look at those recommendations. Recommendation 9, land banking tax advocacy. So land banking traditionally refers to more than just abandoned houses. It also refers to empty properties. So that seems like it may be outside of the scope of the abandoned and derelict housing research, because there's not necessarily a house on all land bank properties. So I'm not sure how that got included in the review, and the scope was pretty clear at the beginning. But let's look at what is that recommendation, that if council affirms the recommendation from the council officers, what is council really supporting? Well, it says that, quote, council should, quote, develop working relationships with the federal and state government, as well as LGAQ, to request the introduction of financial reform, such as land tax, to disincentivise land banking and increase local housing supply. So that's a statewide tax as detailed in this. So it's not talking about Logan Council having a specific increased rating category. It's talking about advocating to the state to change their land tax environment. Now, the first reaction I have to that is that we should be focusing on what council can do. It's fine to mention to state government different ideas, but council's strengths are on the ground with practical implementation in our community. So let's focus on what we're good at, which is actually getting things done in the city of Logan, rather than worrying about complex statewide policy and massive markets like housing, where there's many experts in the field and they don't necessarily work within council in terms of the overall housing market and how land tax affects. That's a pretty complicated thing. So first off, I'm hesitant to spend ratepayers' money on that research, because ratepayers' money should be spent on things for the city. The second concern I have is recommendation 11, which states that council, which would, if council votes for this, it means that council supports, quote, develop working relationships with the federal and state government as well as LGAQ to create funding schemes to support the rehabilitation of abandoned and derelict houses. It goes on to mention that, quote, this scheme would seek dedicated financial backing from federal and or state government sources, such as grants or low-interest loans for the rehabilitation of those houses. Now, what we could see is that since that policy hasn't been developed yet, since the actual idea is unclear and it's very vague and broad, what we could see is council supporting a policy where we want government to give low-interest loans to developers to go and renovate these houses. Now, government money should be spent on some things, but I'm not sure if all ratepayers agree that Logan Council should support public money being given out to developers as a low-interest loan when they have to go out and pay market rates for their loans just to live in the house that they've worked so hard to get. So the bulk of the recommendations, the bulk of the work is fantastic, and your team's done a good job. It's gotten a bit off track with recommendation 9 and 11 in my view, and I think that I'm hesitant to support it because it's giving an overall policy position of council that we support these ideas. If we're going to state that Logan City Council supports something, it should be clear what we support. And recommendation 9 and 11 are very vague and broad, and they give very interesting perspective on housing when what council's perspective should be doing is actually just getting things done to the betterment of our community. So thanks for the report. I wish it didn't have recommendation 9 and 11, but everything else is really good.
I'd just like to speak to that. Just because the property doesn't have a house on it doesn't mean that it's not derelict. We've got many properties throughout the city where don't have houses on it, and they're huge grassy knolls. There's no intention of the owner of the property to mow the grass. They become dumping sites for the city. Certain residents will go to these properties and they'll dump their waste on the property, and nothing will be done. It'll be left there until other ratepayers ask council to do something about it. So council goes there, mows the property and takes away the rubbish, and that all comes at the expense of other ratepayers doing the right thing, maintaining their properties, cutting the grass on their properties and looking after their properties. So I don't think it's just the case of this being, we're going to do this for derelict houses, but we're going to leave land banking properties alone. The land banking properties we're talking about are the ones that are not maintained. That is what this report is trying to address as well. You have a question you'd like to respond to that, Councillor Jeremiah.
Thank you. It's good to say that, Mr. Chair, but when you actually look at the contents of the recommendation and the text on the piece of paper, which is what we vote for, it doesn't specify that. So we can have this intent, we can have this broad vision, but what we're voting for is actually what's written down, and that isn't expressed in what's written down. I'd also like to ask clarification from the council officers. If there's a private property where grass is overgrown and there's horrible dumping there, which happens in Division 8 quite a bit, I know that sometimes council does go and mow that grass or remove something that is causing harm to public safety. Does council attempt to recoup those costs from the private property owner?
Through the chair, yes, they do. Successfully most of the time, but our approach has always been, working with residents, understanding what the issues are. Sometimes there's hardship cases that are involved, but that's the intention.
Councillor Lane.
Just on that, you need a court order to recover those costs, don't you? So we've got to go through the process of applying to the court, getting a determination that council can go in and mow and recover the costs. So again, it costs council money to do that, was my understanding.
Through the chair, Emily, did you have a response to that? Yeah. Look.
Morning, councillors. My recollection is that to recover costs for mowing a resident's overgrown grass is a mechanism recovered through the rates process. So it's not necessarily something which needs to be recovered through a court order. It's more easily recovered as a charge on the rates.
Sorry, so how did that one particular property that we know so well in my division, we have to wait for a court order every time?
I'd probably have to take that one on notice and sort of work with the City Safety and Livability team. There can be some complexity to this, but as a matter of course, generally mowing is recoverable through a charge on the rates.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you. I don't want to delve into the world of wordsmithing reports. However, just from the questions that have just been asked by Councillor Heremiah, it makes me wonder, is it possible or necessary for the word houses to be reported with properties? If we're going to be addressing, non-residential properties, is using the word housing in this report exclusive of that as a possibility?
Through the chair, there's definitely options, with wordsmithing it. I think the intention, and just, Councillor Heremiah raises some good points. I think the intention was one, to share the recommendations that we received through the research, and that's where those 9 came from. I take the point though, about the issue with voting and, kind of locking in that this is what we will do. But that wasn't the intention. The intention was to share some of the research findings which recommended all of those, elements. And so our intention is to just work through those. We understand that there's complex legal issues with them. We'd need to work through, all of that detail before we can actually know what is on, what is not. So, to your point, Councillor Russell, I think removing houses, we could do that. But I think, again, the intention is just being to share the recommendations we've got, and we're asking, a lot of these things are BAU for us in any case, but we wanted to be open and transparent with what was shared with us, because that was the intention today, is share that with you guys.
Thank you so much, and I absolutely I support the intent behind everything that's here, but I guess maybe I'm stuck on the fact that we're endorsing rather than noting. That might be what's making the difference here, that we feel like we are being locked into a process.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, and just wanted to seek some clarification from the officers after some of Councillor Heremiah's concerns around developers in relation to recommendation 11. Because this report's only just been tabled, community members watching might think that I haven't had a chance to obviously read it. It's pretty clear in recommendation 11 that rehabilitation works would be undertaken by experienced community development organisations and not-for-profit groups with a proven track record in delivering housing solutions within Queensland. So not developers. And although I do note the intention of that is to increase housing supply by returning derelict houses to the housing market. I don't think your concern is who benefits from that, realistically. But it's a bit of a flight of fancy to suddenly draw developers into this recommendation when it's clearly saying not-for-profit groups, and that the description, the action, is to develop working relationships with the federal and state government, as well as other councils and organisation peak bodies such as LGAQ to create funding schemes to support rehab. So there's a lot of work that would have to happen before any dollar was spent anywhere, including multiple levels of government, advocacy, peak bodies who would all agree with you, Councillor Heremiah, that you don't want to be creating a low interest funding scheme for developers. Like, no one's going to want to supplement their profits any more than local government already does. So because ratepayers are often subsidising the cost of building new houses. So while I appreciate the concern, if we just focus on what's written in the report, and if councillors don't want to endorse it, I don't know how you get the officers to realign their BAU processes, because you're basically saying we're not confident that we want you to change your BAU. You've done all this good work and we just want to note it. We don't want you to do anything with it. So that's the difference between endorsing something. We've said, go and do research, find out the best way to handle this. The research has said, here's 11 recommendations for how you could. Some will work and some won't. We don't necessarily have, to Councillor Heremiah's point, the on-the-ground powers. There's a lot we can do, but there's all these hard legislative boundaries that are just outdated ledge really from the state that we would need to advocate to change to be able to demolish a derelict home or a derelict commercial building. Because at the moment, no council has ever used the provisions under the Building Code, the Building Act, that lets us demolish a house. None in Queensland ever, because it's so complicated and it's so long and so expensive that you would never do it. So that requires advocacy to the state through something like this, and you're going to have a reason that you're doing that, not just to say we don't like the look of them, let's smash them down. It'll be to create more stock in the housing market or to create more jobs through employment land being activated. So I'm supportive of it being endorsed because I think it says to the staff very clearly, please continue with this good work. If you've got specific concerns about recommendations, name those recommendations that you want more information and clarification on them so that you can get their purpose more accurate. But there's 11 recommendations. If 2 of them are what you're concerned about refining, let's just pull those out and say, provide us further detail on what that would look like when you implement it and endorse the others so that you can continue the good work.
Councillor Jeremiah, I saw your hand shot
Thank
up,
you.
so would you like to respond? I'm just going to let you jump the queue.
I
okay?
support, pardon me?
There's a couple of other councillors have had their hands up before you. Is yours in a direct response to the mayor's?
Yes.
Okay.
I support the idea of removing recommendation 9 and 11 and supporting the other 95% of this report. When we look at the text of recommendation 11, it states that, yes, there will be experienced community development organisations and not-for-profit groups with a proven track record, but that's in relation to rehabilitation works. Now, rehabilitation works is different than structuring the finance of a development. So it states that rehabilitation works would be undertaken by experienced community development organisations and non-for-profit groups, but it also states that the scheme, in terms of the finance scheme, would seek financial backing from federal and state government sources, such as grants or low-interest loans, drawing inferences from other successful models, such as the Queensland First Homeowner Grant. So there's a difference between a developer who buys a property and organises finance for the construction, and then a builder or rehabilitation company that rehabilitates that property. So that's what the text says. Recommendation 9 and 11 is a complicated thing that has many experts in it. I don't think many of them are here, so I think we should remove that because I don't think ratepayers would support it.
Mayor Raven, did you want to retort?
Just to clarify, the text actually says in the description, so you've jumped to the bottom and ignored the intention of the description, which says develop working relationships with the federal and state government, as well as with other councils and organisation peak bodies, such as LGAQ, to create funding schemes to support the rehabilitation of abandoned and derelict houses, not to develop new ones. That's not anywhere in the intent of that. It's all talking about how to do rehab, which is builders, to your point, not developers. It doesn't say to create new homes. It just is trying to get those derelict homes, which are currently not being used for housing because they're derelict, back into the market. So it's really clear what it's doing. We can remove it and wordsmith it till cows come home, but to suggest that there's somehow some plot to give developers money here just isn't what the report says. It's in black and white, that it's for the rehabilitation of abandoned and derelict houses, not for the development of new ones.
Okay, we're going to move on to Councillor Lane. We'll circle back to you. Okay, we're going to move on to Councillor
Do I
Lane.
not get a right of reply?
You can, but
As
we have other
mentioned.
people waiting to speak. We'll let them speak and then we'll circle back to you.
Thanks very much, Mr Chair, and I think that if councillors have concerns about recommendations 9 and 11, if that means that we can move forward in this, then I'm all for that. Brent, the purpose of this is abandoned and derelict homes. It's not derelict and occupied dwellings. It's literally abandoned and derelict homes that sit there that create and become havens for crime. That's what we're actually trying to address today. So if removing number 9 and number 11 gets us where we need to go, I'm all for that. My understanding is that these recommendations were a conversation that goes to a working group. So they're not our forward advocacy strategy. They're actually preparing something for our forward advocacy. That was my understanding from my conversations outside before committee happened, so that I could better understand this report. I appreciate that there's concerns around some of the language, and that's a fair call. Land banking is a massive thing, but when you're land banking with a derelict home on the property, that's when it becomes problematic. I think also those properties that are resumed for whatever purpose that are left there, this could capture them and stop a lot of problems. In Kingston, we had some 30 homes that were derelict because they were resumed for the Faster Rail project, and within days people were in them. They were burning them out, they were creating problems, they were becoming drug havens very quickly. It's amazing how motivated some people can be in the community when it comes to abandoned and derelict homes. So if it means removing recommendation 9 and 11, can we put that on the table, defer this to ordinary council and then put it back to councillors then to give them time to wordsmith and work out what they're comfortable with, and we can go from there, because I do not want to see this fail and us not proceed with this. That would be a mistake.
Okay, so we can shadow an amendment. We just have a couple people still waiting. Okay, Councillor Haramai, here's your chance.
Thank you. I was mentioned in some previous comments, so I have to correct the record. So the way that the world works is that there can be development applications, and development applications can be for a range of things. They can be for changing the use of a land. It can be for building a new building, and it can also be for the rehabilitation of an existing property. There's development applications that actually go and are submitted to council, and they want to rehabilitate a property in a certain way. Now, we see that a lot across the whole region. So developers can rehabilitate properties. And on top of that, I think what ratepayers don't want to see is Logan Council focusing on these big, complex, vague policies when there's already other levels of government that take ratepayers' other taxation and use that money. So we're duplicating work. Now, I'm sure that the LGAQ, the state, the federal government, all these different government bodies that collect 97% of government revenue while council only collects 3%, have many departments and have many think tanks working on these creative ideas. I don't think ratepayers' money should be going towards it. So developers can rehabilitate under the text of the recommendation and the implementation of that recommendation. There is scope for developers to be eligible for the scheme of low interest loans that's being proposed. I don't think that's appropriate. Let's withdraw recommendation 9 and 11, or as Councillor Stemp recommended, let's just note the report. But thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so did any councillor want to raise a, did we want to go with the original, and then if it fails, go for a amended motion? Councillor Murphy.
I'm happy to move the first motion and test the floor.
All right, so we've got the original motion up on the board, and that has been moved by Councillor Murphy and seconded by Mayor Raven. Can I see a show of hands for the motion as it stands? Councillor Fraser, how do you vote?
For.
So we'll go down the room, we'll see how you voted. Councillor Bradley.
Against.
Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Russell.
Abstain.
Against.
St. Leger. Jackson.
Against.
For.
Councillor Haramai.
Against.
Councillor Bannon.
Against.
Councillor Stemp.
I'd like to abstain at this time, please.
For.
Councillor Murphy, and I was for. That has failed. So someone would like to foreshadow an amendment? Councillor Lane?
I would like to defer it to ordinary council with the expectation that recommendations 9 and 11 are removed from the report and represented. Is that an option? We can do it here now, or we can actually, if people have concerns during the period.
If we're going to do that, can we just drop 9 and 11 now and put it through? Yep.
Just said, yep.
Yep. Okay, so there's a motion up on the board that the recommendation, with the exception of items 9 and 11, to improve the council's management of abandoned and derelict house as an intentional one, be endorsed.
Slow down.
Sorry, Councillor Russell.
Thank you. If we are going to make some changes, is it possible for us to put some reference to properties other than houses into this? I have trust that the officers have got that same intention, but I know that, you know,
Commercial.
these, well, just any properties, because it's just that down the track, you know, in a couple of years' time, someone might forget that we had all of these conversations, you know. I'd like to have that included if it's possible.
We need to defer it. So if the report's titled, Abandoned and Derelict Houses and Commercial Research Findings.
I actually feel like it should almost be property rather than saying houses or commercial property.
That covers everything.
Properties, yes. Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Chair, are the officers satisfied with the change of the naming of the report to include that?
Through the chair, yes, I would be.
Okay, so are we happy with what's on the board, or do I personally feel that should be derelict properties? Could we change the houses to properties? Mayor Raven.
I understand the intention. None of the research was about commercial properties though. So you've got, like, you probably need a second report that ties it in, because you're just going to just make that property, but the research didn't focus on it. What we voted on was the research to investigate it. You could, I just feel you got to somehow, you got to do a little bit more than just chuck properties in. You got to somehow extend the scope of the project to include non-resident, like to include all properties, not just residential properties, or something to that effect. Which is where you probably get to a deferral, so you can actually sort out how you would language that, because none of the research is talking about commercial property, that's all. And that's what the findings and recommendations, what the nature of this report is. That's the tricky part.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. I see your point, and I don't disagree with it. However, if we're talking about noting some research, we should be noting it. If we are, if we're endorsing a process, then they're two different things. I think that if we're noting some research today, then we should be noting it, and then also down the track. Not that I want to drag things out, but yeah, then I think that's two different processes and two different things.
I'm in your hands, councillors. Are we happy to move with what is on the board at the moment? Will anyone move that? Okay, so the recommendation on the board has been moved by Councillor Murphy. Do I see a seconder? No seconder? Councillor Bennett, you have a question?
Can we go back to the motion before that, and then this is a policy, right? So with every policy, will become a policy once we do it. Yeah, no, but the process turns into a policy eventually, right? So you'll have a policy that you can give to your staff to go and enforce this. With every policy, there's a 6-month review on it. So if we can go back to the one before this one, and if that gets up, it gets up, and then you're going to review it as you go, aren't you? So every time you do something, you fine tune it.
Councillor Bennett, we've already done that and it lost. Okay,
No, we didn't do this. The one before that, we didn't vote on it. Yeah. So one before that we didn't vote on. Remember how we changed? It got changed.
Change the wording from management of abandoned and derelict houses and commercial properties.
Yeah, take out the bit we just stuck in. No, The girls, no. There you go. Didn't vote on this one.
Okay, we are modifying the motion on the board, correct, to include commercial, no?
That's been moved and seconded. It's now time to vote.
Yes, I'm going to move, Mr Chair, I'm going to move that motion. Councillor Murphy seconded the motion.
Okay, so you're going to move the current motion, and Councillor Murphy, you're going to second the current motion. Can I see a show of hands in support? Councillor Fraser, how do you vote? That has been carried by everyone except for Mayor Raven. How did you vote?
Against.
And Councillor Russell.
I'm going to abstain because I can't see why if this is the research, if the research gave us 9/11, why that can be taken out, but then the re-inclusion of commercial can't be included. I don't understand how that process has led us that way. So I support it generally, but I can't support this in its current state.
Councillor Stemp.
And I'm abstaining also because I believe we should be noting this today, not endorsing it. That's my opinion.
That has still been carried. Okay, so we shall have another motion. Yep. All right, councillors, moving along, does any of the councillors have any general business for the General Manager of the City Safety and Livability, Mr Brent Dowden? Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. Brent, I'm just wondering whether or not I should call for a report into derelict and abandoned commercial properties in the city and a process by which you can formulate something similar to what we've seen here today, excluding number 9 and number 11. And whatever you, yep. Is that a possibility for you to move forward and prepare a report on commercial properties? Is that?
Through the chair, the research that we've got, given that it was a 14-month project, we actually don't have any, research specifically for commercials, but I'm absolutely able to find out what...
Councillor Mindy will take around her area and show you hers.
You're able to call for a report, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I don't have any research.
Councillor Lane, would you like to call for a report?
I would love to. Thank you for the opportunity. Seconded.
Okay, so Councillor Lane has called for a report. That has been seconded by Councillor Russell. Whoop, whoop. Okay, Councillor Lane, would you like to put a motion up on the board?
I would. Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I would like to call for a report for the City Safety and Livability Manager to prepare a report to a future committee on the way forward to address abandoned and derelict commercial properties in the City of Logan. Is that suitably vague?
Councillor Russell, you have a question. Can we let the...
May I just make a comment? I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel on this either. Like, I think that it's essentially the same content. So I wanted to clarify, like, I would hate to think that we're putting up a report that is, that's creating the same amount of work and effort that's gone into the report we're looking at now. But just if it cannot be included in this report today, then I think it's necessary to have another report.
Problem is, we can't predetermine an outcome or the content of the report.
So, I would suggest that this is not necessarily a
Okay,
research.
so
We bothered.
the Executive General Manager of Community and Lifestyle would like to speak to this.
Thank you, through the chair. If council wishes us to do a report, of course we will do a report. There's no issues there. I guess I just wanted to take a step back from a pragmatic, practical perspective. Brent alluded to before that the principles that they've determined and the recommendations they've determined for housing will apply to commercial. So they're going to treat it as a whole. There may be some nuances with commercial that aren't covered in the report, but I guess we'll discover that as we start rolling out this recommendation. And if there's anything that's a big impact or we need to really divert the way we're moving forward, we could certainly come back to council and highlight those. But I'm just mindful of the work that goes into a report. Happy to do it, of course. The intention is to include commercial. It is just a naming convention. The investment proposal was abandoned and derelict houses, but I think it's more about the principle of properties that are derelict and abandoned. So happy to do a report, but I don't think the intention of this work was to exclude commercials. If we do come across something that requires a deviation to the current plan, we could certainly come back. So I'm just putting that proposal out there, but should Councillor Lane wish to call that motion, we would of course support it should it get passed by the other councillors.
Thank you, Director, and I forget your other title because it's just so long. So my thing is I want this this housing thing to move forward, and if it means gaining the support because we don't have commercial specified in the last motion, Councillor Russell has some reservations that it will be captured, but if you're saying it will be captured, I'm happy to withdraw this, but I will read the report very carefully, and if it's not in there.
Mayor Raven.
Could I suggest that the solution that you're looking for is something on the record that states that commercial properties will be considered as part of this body of work, rather than requesting an entire new report that just tells you that that's what they're going to do? Because that's essentially what you were trying to intend before your vote got gazumped. So,
May I respond? Yes, that was my original suggestion.
you just want something on the record to say that the officers will consider commercial properties as part of this work. Is that right? Can we have a note added to the minutes that the director committed to that?
He just said it.
He said it, but it's not in the minutes.
It's all on the record,
It's on the
Mayor
record,
Raven.
and
It's
one day
all on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One day that record will be deleted. I guarantee you, because we don't keep them forever, and something will happen. So something in the minutes, which is a document, it's written down in black and white. You can screenshot it. You can show it to people. You can send it in an email back to the EGM to remind him that he said it.
The Executive General Manager will reply.
And should my team fail to do that, there's nothing stopping you calling a report in the future either. So
Councillor Russell.
Could be cheeky, but you could just make it number 9 if you want. Recommendation number 9 could be that
The report has gone through, it has been carried, that we can do no more with it as it stands. It's going through. Okay. So are there any further questions for the Acting General Manager for the City Safety and Livability, Mr. Brent Dowden? There being none, you're free to go. Okay. So all right, so we're moving on to item 6.2, Parks Planning Design and Capital Delivery 2025 to 2026 quarter second report, 1st of October, 31st of December. We have the Acting General Manager of Parks, Miss Anita Moore, and I believe she's accompanied by Caroline King. Have we ever had you up here before? Last time. Okay. All right, so you may speak to your report, Anita Moore.
Thank you, Chair. And through the Chair, good morning, councillors, and thank you for your time presenting an update on Parks Capital Works and the progress that we made from October to December last year. It's been a good quarter for Parks. We've completed 9 projects, acquired a property for a future sports park, and completed 8 designs. We have in the PowerPoint presentation some images of those designs, which I'd like to share with you. This first project at Forest Glen Park is a half court, and it's a great example of multifunctional equipment and the benefits that brings to the network in providing value for money play opportunities. The second one is a key court at Jarvis Crossing Park. This maximises the use of space in a constrained area and provides valuable team play activities. Lizardell Park, we installed 2 pieces of fitness equipment, which extended the offering to service the local community. This is a variety of projects that were completed that improve the amenity in our parks. And again, talking about value for money in the parks network, some of the boulders here in the Miranda Park Dola is an interesting use of blocks. Rather than installing dog agility equipment, it provides some more diverse uses with a lower operational cost than equipment. This was a joint project funded by Division 7 and 11 to provide signage and seating to maximise use of the trails through Boronia Bushland Reserve. And on the side there you can see the little QR code, which also links to website. This project installed goals in the Pebble Creek Parkland, so this was otherwise a blank canvas of a site, so these goals really extend the use and the functionality of that space for the community. And Baruna Park Upgrade was funded, is an asset replacement project and includes the rubber soft fall increasing the accessibility of the park. We also have a number of projects that are still in construction. The first of these is Balava Sports Park. So this is a great project. This park has no improvements on the site, so this will provide some valuable recreation opportunities for those living in the local community to access. And this is a little video taken by our officers, if I can get it to play, of the Sturdy Park Drain Naturalisation Project. So this is a fully funded grant project. And it's excellent, and I'd like to draw your attention to the excellent drone footage which has managed to capture some ducks, I believe, as we come to the end. But this is an exciting project. It's the first of its kind for council in drain naturalisations. Yes, thank you. Oh, sorry, it's so good we're seeing it twice. I'm sorry about that. Technological, sorry. I need thicker glasses. Thank you. So hopefully this will play. Thank you very much. So Waterford West is an exciting project located opposite the Marsden Depot. It's an excellent location with schools adjacent. And the footage that you can see here, productivity during the quarter was a little lower than expected with the rainfall. But you can see in the footage where some of the drainage works have started to take shape and have been formed, and where now, if you're driving past the site, you'll see it coming up out of the ground. So it's a very exciting project for us. And that concludes the completed projects and work in progress for the quarter.
Amazing work. For the first time ever, we've got ducks in Sturdy Park, which is just an amazing outcome. Councillor Bradley, you have a question.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I want to give sincere thanks to the staff, particularly for the Baruna Park. I've had feedback from the community. They're just absolutely stoked with the improvements there. And it's actually changed a little bit of the demographics of who's utilising the park. There's kids now playing football, cricket, all sorts of things which they weren't doing before. And that was from the park playground replacement. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. it's an excellent team that we have in Parks working on these projects, and I think they do a fantastic job. So it's a great outcome if the parks are a catalyst, or these projects are a catalyst for increased use in our public space.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much to you, Mr Chair. Ladies, thank you very much for the report. I will say that some of the items that have gone into Division 2 local parks, like the soccer goals at Berry and Bega, they're going in at Elm Park, make a huge difference to how kids play in our parks. Sometimes the parks can be quite static and geared towards lower ages, and without spending a bucket load, we can't get them up to include teens. So when we come to you and we say we want something fresh for teens, or for dads wanting to have a kick around with their kids, it's really awesome the way you select the site and then go from there, and it's affordable. The work that and the enthusiasm, I went on a road trip with you out to that place that shall not be named to the west of us, and we looked at skate park, and the enthusiasm for the Super Mega Skate Park for Gould Adams Park is growing, which is amazing, and I look forward to seeing the results of the report that comes back to the service enhancement for that. The interesting part, though, is this Waterford District Park. That's going to be a big game changer out that way. I know that there's been investment in parks in Killara and places like that, but this is a mega park, and it's going to be huge for the local residents, and it'll keep them out of my hood. So thank you very much.
Okay, councillors, no further questions. We need to table PowerPoint. Can I have a mover with Mayor Raven? I'll second. Can I have a show of hands for the tabling of the PowerPoint? That has been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how did you vote? That has been carried by everyone in the room. So we'll put a motion up on the board that the report titled Parks Planning Design and Capital Delivery 2025-2026 Quarter Second Report 1st of October to 31st of December 2025 be noted. Can I have a mover? This has been moved by Councillor Bennon, seconded by Mayor Raven. A show of hands in support. That has been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how did you vote? That has been carried. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for the Acting General Manager of Parks, Miss Anita Moore? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Anita. I love your work. I was just wondering if I could get an update with regards to Doug Larson Park and the designs that we're working on with regards to the waterways. I'd really like to get that started as soon as possible, especially now that we're in a bit of a dry season. No rain going to happen anytime soon, so we could see if we could get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's an exciting project and one that offers a lot of benefits, and we're in the final stages of the design and looking at the cost estimates and funding arrangements for that project. So,
excellent. Thank you.
Any further general business? Anita Moore, do you have any general business for us? There being none, you're free to go. Okay, councillors, moving on to item 6.3, Sports and Community Infrastructure 2025-26, second quarter report, 1st of October to 31st of December. This is a public report, and we have the General Manager, Sports and Community Infrastructure, Mr. Ben O'Brien, speaking to his report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. And Chair, I'm quicker prepared this committee round for you, so thank you for the prompt last committee. The report before you discusses the Sports and Community Infrastructure Program progress as at the end of quarter 2 for the financial year, being the end of December. Before you use the Beenleigh Aquatic Centre, you may recall last round we brought a report to committee looking to grant an easement in the favour of Energex. That has been been processed, and happy to confirm Energex have confirmed us in their works program, which is brilliant. The contractor is currently Working on the remaining concrete, landscaping and filling of the pool will begin shortly. And they've just recently completed the repair works from the storm damage that were quite significant towards the end of last year. Before you is the Flagstone Community Centre. This is nearing completion, will be completed in Q3, so imminently. Concurrently, there's been an expression of interest run to identify an operator for this facility, and we're hoping that that operator will also be appointed imminently. I'd like to draw your attention to the facade artwork on the vision there that has been designed by Jessica Skeen, and the artwork is titled Rooted in Strength, Walking Together. I just wanted to give you a brief description of the work. Across the artwork, animal tracks weave through the landscape and gather around the waterways that flow across the land. These tracks honour the ancestors and the animals who have walked here over many generations. They reflect the strength of ongoing connections to land and water, inviting us to pause, listen and move with care and respect. We have the Logan Reserve, Parkridge community space. Before you is the concept design. Hopefully we've zoomed in there to give you more of an appreciation of what's being planned at the end of that rather long site there. And as touched on last committee round, we're hoping that the tender drawings or the detailed design drawings will be completed around the the end of this financial year or the middle of 2026. So we can progress quite quickly through to the construction phase for that project. Happy snap before you of the sod turning at the McKinnon Sports Park South Clubhouse. So pleased to advise that construction has commenced and construction is planned to be completed for this project by Q1 next financial year. Compton Park Clubhouse, again, pleased to advise construction is progressing, always positive. We're up out of the ground, which is fantastic, and the project is planned to be completed by the next quarter. Hamill Park Clubhouse, the design is in progress, with demolition being the first phase of our construction, expected to commence in the coming weeks? Yep. Yeah, in the coming weeks, so which will be fantastic news for that club. Bedford Park Clubhouse, the design is being finalised. There's some very light or early site preparatory works that have commenced. Construction is expected to commence in March with a notice of works to go to residents this week. Currajong Park change rooms in Jimboomba are before you there. This project was completed in December. And just to call out, we are trialling different construction methodologies. So the one before you was a modular build rather than traditional construction. And it's come up, from our perspective, quite well. So we're very excited about that. And we have the Skirma Park Equestrian Arena Shelter. And as the video, I'll be quiet. This was completed in December. Audio's not really pumping that loud.
You need to sing.
Mm-hmm. Noted. Yes, yes. We did try to orchestrate the horses running around, but couldn't quite get there. Thank you, Mr. Executive General Manager. A number of sports field lighting projects have all been completed in the reporting quarter. So the Usher Park Soccer, the Bigger River Country Park All Sports, Chambers Flat Rugby League, Greenbank Recreation Reserve Multisports, and Douth Park, which is fantastic to hopefully increase that utilisation. And we have the Parkridge Sports and Recreation Precinct. So before you is a copy of the concept design and an artist's impression on screen of that concept design. And that was done as at the end of that last quarter. We are now progressing into, and we'll progress through, imagining for the next possibly 6 months through the EPBC referral phase. So very exciting to get through that and then continue with design and hopefully and construction. That's it for the presentation, and thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Councillor Murphy, you had a question.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the team. We have 7 projects just in Division 12 on this list, and I wanted to say thank you. I believe I'm going out to the pool this week to fill it, get the hose and put it in and pump it up, which will be great. A good story also for Bedford Park. The crew are there a month early, which is unreal. That's been in the process a long time. Hamill Park, they're actually doing the storage shed now, so that will be constructed very shortly, and then the team can come out, and I can't wait to go out there with the wrecking ball to knock down that really, really old clubhouse, which is awesome. Lots and lots of lighting, resurfacing of netball courts, etc., etc. So thank you to the team. It has been a lot of work, and there's still more to come. Thank you.
A bit like Miley Cyrus with the wrecking ball. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Jeremiah.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. My question is about Rosier Park. So Rosier Park has a certain amount of money dedicated to it, and it's still early on in the process because we need to get all of those approvals before we can really start scoping out the pricing and really determine exactly what we're going to build there, down to the millimetre of how thick will the steel frame be on the clubhouse. But before we get there, I just saw that new rendering, and it had a number of car parks. It would be fantastic if council officers can consider, when they do get to that pricing stage, whether the true usage of the facility is taken into account. For example, the community, I think, and I will consult and double check, but the community would prefer money being spent on different materials. So, for example, we need overflow parking. One of the quotes that we've received is $100,000 per car park in some areas. So instead of putting, $3 million into a huge concrete car park just for overflow parking that's only used for events, while council officers consider all of these plans, I encourage that they consider whether or not we can use alternative materials for overflow, so then that money can be spent on the facilities that are actually used very often rather than on infrequent times like an overflow car park. I saw especially at that entrance way there was a huge amount of car parks along the road. Alternative materials could be a perfect place there, so then that money can be put into the actual facilities in the clubhouse. So, yeah, if council officers can consider that as they progress through the planning, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremiah. Absolutely, that's fantastic. We'll definitely work with you to look at the value management options for those aspects, and where we can then redirect some of that funding into higher quality outcomes as well. Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Compton Park is going great guns, and we're really appreciative of that, the work that's being undertaken there. But the things that you didn't mention in this report were the finalisation of Logan Roo's clubhouse. I was up there on the weekend, and the CrimSafe has finally been installed, but it's not just boxing in a clubhouse, it's swinging gates. It's actually opening the clubhouse up and allowing that security, that sense of security for the main entry points to the clubhouse to go in. And the requests were for multiple doors to be able to open up, to open the clubhouse up so that kids could run up from the fields and parents could move freely through that structure, and it's worked. It's absolutely brilliant, the work that was done there. The club is so happy, the players are very happy, but most importantly the area council is happy that the expenditure really paid off, and I'm going to look at other clubhouses within my division to see whether I can do that on their verandas. The last thing is one of the things that we don't often hear about is I've sold most of the facilities in Division 2 to ensure that those groups have affordable electricity bills so that they can run their programs at an affordable level. But I actually want to look into battery options to further save them so that they can open up at night and again reduce their overall electricity consumption or consumption costs. I'm wondering whether or not council has a strategy to get the best bang for buck for those smaller facilities to allow them to pretty much run off grid now. Is that something that your team has been considering?
Great question, Councillor Lane. Brilliant. There is no strategy in regards to batteries at this point in time, albeit I don't know whether we need a strategy. There is a progression in trying to lower operating costs for our sporting clubs and our community groups to provide their very valued service to the community. Part of that was the installation of solar. We do have an eye on batteries, and it is around, and I can happy to talk further offline around that point where it represents that value proposition where you can roll out, obviously, in their stage of development. But yes, that is, apart from solar, the next frontier to add on to our buildings, especially community clubs operating at night, and if, based on this presentation here with the sports fields that actually utilise a lot of their lighting at night, it's helped lower the costs during the day but not at night. So we have got an eye on that. Happy to talk further around when we start to consider that through the sports and community infrastructure programs as well.
It's definitely something that I've been considering for some time, but I didn't think that we were quite there with the reliable, affordable option. And it seems that those affordability options are coming each and every day with reliability attached to them. So I would really like to have the option of installing batteries into those community facilities to make sure that all of the costs for ratepayers are down as much as possible, but allow the programs to actually grow and have more frequently.
There we go, my apologies. Must learn to press the button correctly. The next step for my team will have a look at also considering the appropriate capacity of battery to either assist with lowering operating costs or whether it's to wipe out, and what does that value look like. So, yeah.
Councillor St Ledger.
Councillor Lane, we should come on out and we'll go and have a chat with the Buzz at Yarrabilba, where the team recently installed solar and battery backup. So it's been operational since just after Christmas, so probably the next quarter they'll have a bit of an indication of how it's affected their billing.
Okay, councillors, we have a motion up on the board to move the PowerPoints. That's been moved by Councillor Bannon. That's been counselled by Councillor Hall. Show of hands in support. So that has been moved by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how do you vote? That has been carried. So we have a motion up on the board that the report titled Sports and Community Infrastructure 2025-2026 Second Quarter Report for the 1st of October to the 31st of December to be noted. That has been moved by Councillor Bannon. That has been seconded by Councillor Hall. Can I have a show of hands? That has been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how did you vote? That has been carried. Okay, councillors, does anyone have any general business for the General Manager for Sports and Community Infrastructure, Mr Ben O'Brien? Mr Ben O'Brien, do you have any general business for us?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you're free to go. Okay, councillors, we're on to item 6.4, City of Logan Major Events Plan. This is a public report with a confidential attachment. We have the General Manager of Venues and Events, Mr Brad Page, presenting. He's one of my favourite managers in council. I'd
like to declare a conflict of interest against the chair.
Only that he takes a lot of chops at me, that's all. All right. I note that item 6.4 is a public report with a confidential attachment. Proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move into a closed session for this item? There being none, okay, so Mr. Brad Page probably isn't going to have a lot to talk about. All right, seeing as there is, okay, so all right, so we're going to stay out of confidential. The General Manager of Venues and Events, Mr. Brad Page, will speak to his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did actually foresee this having some level of public discussion, which as it should, and shout out to Kylie Jack over there who was taking my instructions and turning them into a public presentation. So we do actually have a piece to talk to and to demonstrate for you today. So just for clarity, we've been on this journey for a little while now. This is the whole of Council's event sort of framework that's led up to this path, and today is about the major events component to that. So when I say major events, the city has yet to deliver what is now defined as a major event. We've never delivered a major event, so we're shooting high, and that's, you know, the reason for that will become evident. So I think I've got this in this presentation. So happy to run through this, and then happy to take any questions that I can talk to. If you do obviously have questions regarding the confidential piece, then yeah, I'll leave that to you to determine whether or not you should move into confidential. All right. So sorry, just one back. So the overarching desire of a major events plan is not dissimilar to every other council. It's to position us as a premier location to bring people to this city. Yeah, historically, we've now gone through defining what a civic event is. These are your citizenship ceremonies, your Anzac Days, Remembrance Days, etc. And then in the middle, we have the community events, which we currently deliver some internal, there's some external. So that program is still continuing behind the scenes, and we're looking at better ways to do that, which we've addressed in a couple of workshops, and we'll keep coming back to you with the best way to do that, because I know you're all very passionate about those community events. But today forward, we're looking at the top. We're looking at the major events, the high-impact events that are pulling people from national and international audiences that have got key outcomes being economic development, visitation to the city, you know, catalysing investment into the city, as well as bringing major festivals for overnight accommodation and tourism into the city as well. So on the screen there, we'll give you a scale. We're not intending to have a flug tag, whatever that may be, but that's the scale of what a major event is. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people coming to this city. Yeah, the key components is we are aligning this major events plan to state federal government strategies. So we have the capacity to seek funding to get co-contributions. It'll also align to our internal strategies and internal policies, whatever they may be when we land on those. What we've tried to do, without being overly prescriptive, is to take the essence of the city. You know, we are who we are. We've got significant strengths in the city, and really to embellish and enhance those strengths that we have. And this is not meant to be a finished product, a prescriptive product, but, you know, leaning into what we do well already and what we can potentially do better. And I know every one of you have got your own areas that are strong in certain areas, from the green space out in the west to the urban piece in the middle of Springwood, for example. Yeah, we're not shying away from the issues that we need to face. And I know, Mr. Mayor, this is you all over. There's a lovely picture of you on there dealing with it day to day. It's out there, and this major events plan is a key component to helping us break that cycle of external perception, because we know what the city is, we know what the city can be, and this is a key component of how we get there. The four key elements that we're addressing, again, this is whole of city uplift. This is not necessarily about a division or about a particular product or service in a region. This is about lifting this whole city up in 10 years from now, that we are now better than Logan North or Logan Shores, for example. Welcome. And it's about economic development. It's about visitor growth, reputation and infrastructure catalysation. So we want people to come and see the opportunity in this city and invest their money, their tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, into infrastructure or services in this city. There's some key pieces. So what we will do for you is not just tell you it's going to happen and then bring you back a report to say we think it went okay. We'll give you true data to demonstrate exactly what the outcome was. And if we get it wrong, we won't make that same decision twice, because the data will support that. Again, I mentioned aligning to industry policies, etc. It's a no-brainer. We can't just do our own thing without understanding who's on the journey with us. And a key piece is how do we do it? So when we say curate, host, protect, what we're talking about is establishing an event, delivering that event, but the last one is the most critical. So there's no point investing money and funds and time and energy into something that can just be stolen. So it's got to be tied to Logan. We've got to have a defence around it, a moat around it. We've got to make sure that we don't do all the heavy lifting and then someone just chips in with a few $100,000 over the top and takes it. Don't have the answer, but we certainly have the framework being built to deliver the answer. And just an indication of that time frame. So you'll have an investment decision to make towards the budget cycle. Part of that is establishing some key personnel to drive this for us, to go out and chase these big things. All the while, we can still maintain a better version of BAU. Some of the stuff we've started to deliver now is really knocking on the door of major events. So to lift that up further, we can do that in the background whilst we get ready for the long-term delivery. And I'll just double check, and that's it. Sorry, there was a public and a private version of this, a confidential version of this, so thank you for that, Kylie. With that, more than happy to hand over if there's any questions. Leave it to you, Mr Chair.
Councillors, okay, Councillor Lane, you have a question.
Thanks very much. So thanks for the report, and the confidential report was a good read as well. For me, can you say that our aspirations will be affordable to the city? Because I think a lot of people want to see those big signature events there, and I know that in Division 9 we've got Flame, which has been just hugely successful. It still hasn't kicked into that next stratosphere of area. Is it affordable, this? I think that's what residents want to know. Are our aspirations affordable in this area?
Thank you for the question. Through the Chair, I guess it comes down to the definition of affordable, but I will respond along the lines of the whole intent of major events. We can do them one of two ways. We can do a major event that is cash positive, right, which is, we'll make more than we spend, and or we can do them that the whole of city gets an economic benefit. So by bringing 100,000 people in, it would generate 4 to 5 or 6 times the cost of delivering that event to local business, to accommodation, to those elements within the city, so the city benefits. Exactly which direction we go, yet to be defined, but ultimately council will have some input as to where we go down that path.
Thanks. 2 very important considerations. And as a teen in the 80s, my inner Aussie bogan says that I love the idea of having events in our city, so I don't have to travel. And I'll say who, but going down to see Chocolate Starfish and the Fabulous Capettos, and I have to go to the Gold Coast to do it, that does my head in, because we've got great venues here, and quite frankly, we've got enough people from that era to fill KBF, not a problem. We just don't seem to have that connection, and that's not the scale that you're talking about. You're talking next level above that. So I appreciate the report, and I thank you that you're looking at the opportunities for the city and the return to the city in an affordable manner. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to follow on with that. I went to see Smashing Pumpkins in the Gold Coast, and all around me there's people from Brisbane travelling all the way to the Gold Coast, and the residents of Gold Coast are watching it for free over in their parking lot, which is right next to where they have their shows. So it's what you know. So we have Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just a question. Other areas that have major events, has there been a shift after a certain period of time in terms of accommodation? Like, do you see there a real draw card for major accommodation if you have these events, these sort of scale events on a regular basis? I'm just curious to see what's
No,
out
thank you
there.
for the question. And again, through the Chair, you bang on the money. So there's an element of chicken or egg here, excuse me. In a perfect world, we'd have the accommodation ready to bring the events in. So we're trying to catalyse that investment in the first place. But if you look at other SEQ major councils, and I'll use Moreton as a good example, lots of hotels on the peninsula there at Redcliffe and around, and they can support 200,000 people across a week, or 50,000 people across 1 week for Moreton Bay Food and Wine or for Kite Fest, etc. So it's an absolute challenge of ours. Certainly the economic development area within council are well aware, and we're actively targeting that investment into accommodation to the city. We've got a lot of relationships with Tourism and Events Queensland who are well on board. They see the value of where we sit with Logan, both geographically and from an opportunities perspective. Every council wants to do major events. Some do them better than others. The fact that we've got a greenfield sort of site, for lack of a better description, we get to build it the right way. We don't have a legacy piece that may or may not be working. But yes, to answer your original question, there's dedicated modelling and data that will come in the later piece of this report to underpin the actual return on investment. So, and not just a report from an officer that says it's been a good week, that will demonstrate in real-time spending. There's a lot of, for those of you who may be aware, there's real-time analytics spending model that if we have an event at location X, we can identify the retail spend in a particular area, whether it be food and beverage or fuel. We can really see that exact uplift at a particular point in time. That's the data, once we get this established, that we can take to the private sector to say, look, we've got a demand already here. If you don't get in quick, someone else will beat you to the punch. So I suggest you build a $60 million hotel pretty quickly.
Councillor Bradley, did you have your hand up before? Yep.
Thank you. Can you just help me understand what the process is from here? So will it be council driven to go out and find these events, or how does it work? Can you just explain?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bradley, and through the chair. You're right to ask the question. There is a little bit of black magic involved, to be honest. These events aren't necessarily published in the paper or online, so a key part of this framework is to onboard a specialist that lives in this world, that knows that that particular event is coming up soon and there's an opportunity to grab it or put it over here. So having someone connected into that world that is not currently in my team, we have people that are very good at things, but it's a very specialist world. So identifying them, yes, we can create our own. To my earlier point, if there's people that haven't locked the door and there's another event that's available for us to pick up and move into Logan, that's an opportunity for us as well.
I'm glad you clarified what my concern was, so thank you for that. I know over the years there have definitely been proposals for major events, so I'm just curious where this will go. Thank you.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. And the answer to the question of can we afford it is I don't think we can afford not to do it. We look at places like Sunshine Coast, which is our dead set contemporary. They are Logan by the Sea. They have affordable housing. They have the same size budget. They have a slightly smaller than us. They have a slightly smaller population than us. And they have PDAs. They've got a lot of development coming, and they can host 30,000 people events. They don't do it very well, and we would do it much better because we're in the heart of everything. But if Sunshine Coast can convince 30,000 people to schlep their way up the Bruce Highway and then have no public transport to get home, literally tens of thousands of people walking that Bruce Highway at 1 a.m. to get back to their accommodation, which is a 5K walk, if they can get people to go 30Ks for that, and the massive economic benefits that come to their local businesses and their city from having those people come and stay and spend money and then go to cafes the next morning to complain about how long the walk was, then I think that we can do far, far better because we've actually got public transport. But to try and land the big things that the community tells us we want, you have to bring people here that aren't our punters to spend money in our city with our businesses, which is the point of economic development. I'm really excited to see that events and economic development will be working hand in hand on this project, because that's when we really start to get things to hum. Obviously very supportive of the concept. Can't wait to see when we bring, can we get Jelly Roll to come to Logan? I think that was a pretty popular social media post. People said yes. But if not first tier, top tier performers, then let's start somewhere and start building it up. But we've really got to work towards a goal, because previously we've just sort of done it in, again, a bit of a fragmented way, hoping that something good lands in our lap. I love that we're doing it with deliberate intention, and let's keep that up.
Okay, councillors, with no further questions, I've got to table the PowerPoint as presented. Can I have a mover? It's been moved by Councillor Stemp, seconded by Councillor St Ledger. Show of hands in support. It's been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how did you vote? Okay, so we have a motion up on the screen, and I'm going to move. So it's been moved by Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Bannon. Show of hands in support of the motion up on the screen. That has been carried by everyone in the room. Councillor Fraser, how did you vote? That has been carried. Councillors, do we have any general business for the General Manager of Venues and Events, Mr. Brad Page? There being none, Mr. Brad Page, do you have any general business for us?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're free to go. Okay, councillors, that concludes our agenda. We have no late reports. Does anyone have any general business for the Executive General Manager, Mr. Brad White? No, Mr. Brad White, do you have any general business for us? There being none, I declare the City of Lifestyle Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 11th of February, concluded at 11:36. Thank you.